Now, we normally do a classic album of the weekend, but today and this weekend, we're going to look back at 6 classic albums. Well, kind of. Editors release Black Gold, the best of, on Friday, and Tom and Justin have very kindly joined me to talk through the running order and pick some of their highlights from the album. How are you guys?
We're doing good. How are you?
Thanks for being here. Does it feel like 5 minutes since you first put out a record and now here you are doing a retrospective?
No, I think it makes me feel a bit old.
Does it?
Yeah, and I look back at some of the pictures and when we were putting this together and listening to some of those early songs for the first time in a long time, yeah, I felt the passing of time. It felt like a long time ago.
It's been, what, more than 15 years?
15 years is probably when we got signed, and then the debut was 2005, so yes. Yeah.
I've been around for just over 7 years, 7.5 years in this band.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a long time, actually. It's weird at this point now. I mean, for Tom, it feels like ages, but, we're at a point where the chapter 1 of the band were the original members of Chris and those first 3 records. And now we're at the end of the second 3 records where me and Elliot joined as well. It must feel like 2 lifetimes for you, mate. Feels like a lifetime for me.
Does it even feel like 2 bands, Tom?
That's a really good question. It doesn't now. Going through that bad time after the 3rd record when we parted ways with Chris and these 2 guys joined, it didn't ever feel like another band, but we were rocked to our core. It was we questioned why we're doing it. You never know if it's going to work out when you make that type of decision, and you're worried about your kind of creative chemistry if you can continue that.
Did you question it to the point of thinking, actually, no, we'll just leave it there?
Yeah, that was the 2 options. It was like, just call it a day, or we had basically 1 concert booked in like 3 months down the line. The biggest concert we'd ever have, a headline slot in Belgium at a festival called Rock Werchter. And it was my opinion that we should cancel that and work out how to recover. Ed and Russell didn't have the same opinion, so we got these 2 guys in, Justin and Elliot, to help us do that concert.
Yeah,
but you just don't know how, you do it with the best intention, but obviously now sat here, having made 3 records with the 2 new guys, not so new guys anymore, it's all cool. And
what do you remember about that night?
That show?
The show, yeah.
Lots of nerves. I mean, Justin can tell you his opinion in a bit, but it was, we were on the biggest stage in front of about 80,000 people with new people. We started with new songs as well. And we were aware that Chris not being there was a big deal for our audience. So it was, we were on a knife edge there. If the show didn't go very well, I wouldn't be sat here now.
And Justin?
It was bold, to say the least. Literally, that show resolved the fate of a band and all the people in that band, and what they did with their lives from that point on all became cemented on a field in Belgium. I mean, I completely neglected to really do my research into just how big a deal Editors kind of is outside of the UK. I mean, I got told, I got a call off the manager going, this is happening. Do you want to come in? I was like, yeah, man, why not? Let's go for it. Basically, from when me and Elliot started, we kind of got the emotional weight of what the band had been through in the previous 18 months. We're like, hey, we should really knuckle down here and work this out. And then, walking on stage in front of that many people, not many people experience that.
I will never know. Tell me how it feels.
It's insane. Nothing feels real. We did a couple of warm-up shows in Birmingham which were brutally real, but walking onto that stage, you lose all sense of perspective on anything, because whichever way you look, you can't see the end of the audience left or right. All you can see is food trucks for like half a mile away. You know that there's people stood in front of that watching you, and that's they're that big. And then we decided to open with a new song, which was probably the boldest masterstroke and riskiest manoeuvre probably the band have ever done. But it was amazing.
Do you ever get used to those crowds, Tom?
It's never like that night. It's never like the first one. And also because of the intensity of the situation and everything else that was going, the story leading up to it and the story that it's become. But no, in the answer to your question, you don't really get used to it. I mean, maybe if you did it literally every night, you would.
Yeah, I mean, if you were U2, I reckon you're pretty used to it by now. But I think it's just the crossroads of all the parameters moving into those 5 people walking into that show. Everything the band had come through, the crossroads of the band, new members, new songs, audience knowing this band for 3 records and, loving this band and their lineup, into suddenly this just all coming to a head on the kickstart of one note of one song that nobody has ever heard before.
What was it?
It was Sugar. And it's why putting this best of is quite interesting for us, because a best of for us in the UK would be very different from Belgium or Italy. They'd all be very different songs. There would be some overlaps, of course, but we had to kind of take a step back and just pick songs that were big, important for our audience, you know what I mean? And for us as a band. So that's why Sugar, although not a typical Editor's hit single, is on this best of, because it's the song that, when we all realised that, well, I think this is going to be all right. Like creatively, we can do something as a 5-piece,
Six Music at the Weekend, and this weekend's classic album is the best of, the new one by Editors. It's called Black Gold. Tom and Justin from the band are here. Guys, it must have been almost like Mission Impossible putting this together.
It took me a while to come round to the idea of being nostalgic. I was kind of a little bit apprehensive about doing a best of, full stop, really. I think there's been times where we've been offered to do, there's tours where bands go and play albums in full from start to finish and that type of thing. I've always never been comfortable with. So this is an extension of that, really.
The reason I think it must be so hard for a band is that obviously you've got the hit singles, but they might not always be what you consider to be your best work. So with 6 albums, more than 60 songs to choose from, how did the process work?
To us, it's about the songs that resonate to the journey of the band. So it's not necessarily bang a hit, bang a single, this, that. It had to be something that we could invest in ourselves. It creeps up on you, this like best of thing. I mean, you got to remember, there's a handful of bands that get to do 6 records and still going, and are still at a certain size. The words best of, just, you never really think it's going to come to that.
The bottom line is it makes you feel old.
Yeah.
And we all one of the reasons you start a band is, well, a big reason is to feel young. It's to not even age,
Peter Pan, man.
It's, Lost Boys stuff. So
It's the acknowledgement of a big passage of time. As if the grey hair and older kids don't slap you in the face with it every day. And then you're confronted with this behemoth of a millstone around your neck called a best of.
So once it was mooted, what did you all go down the pub and start talking about?
No, it was just like, it was on and off for a long time.
I think we liked the idea of something like Substance by New Order. The way it was packaged and put together was like it was obviously their best of, but it wasn't like best of New Order. It was like an entrance point, do you know what I mean, for people that may be not aware of what they've done. So giving it an identity of Black Gold, and it not just being called the best of Editors, suddenly it's like, okay, well actually that puts it in a slightly different place. Like we said, important songs from the band, from at least one from every record, and just kind of came around to the idea eventually.
I'm wondering how much of a democracy it was, mate, with the final decision-making. Tom, I'm looking at you.
We were all pretty in agreement with it, to be honest. I think it was one of those... In that situation, you do need someone to spearhead it and go, I think we should do it like this. Otherwise, everyone would just be randomly sending a track list in until the end of time, because the mathematical equation of how many different track lists can you get from 6 albums of music, plus B-sides, plus this, that and the other, you will literally be here till the end of time.
I'm guessing each song has like loads of special memories.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I haven't, especially some of those early songs, I've not listened to on record, in headphones, over a decade probably, some of them. So going back and listening to Munich and Bullets, especially those first 2 records, because they do feel like a long time ago, and different members in the band. So like you say, does it feel like a different band? There was an element of truth to that, so it feels like a lifetime ago.
Different time, different place.
Yeah, but it was nice to be reminded of different things, really. It was nice to go, there's magic in the recording.
Putting this record together, I had the task of actually finding all the files, because I'm the guy who does a lot of the...
He's the tech guy.
I'm the tech guy. I engineer the records, but I know where all the files are, so I know where all the bodies are buried. So I had to go and dig through not only the stuff that I've worked on for the last 3 records, I had to literally go through their album hard drives from day one, because nobody really knew where the mixes were that we were putting together. So it was interesting for me to dig through, and from that point, I think it's the first time I ever realised the entire span of the band. I'm confronted with literally a box of hard drives.
It was interesting for me because the reality of our vaults actually being huge Tupperware boxes was terrifying.
Yeah.
That's what
Full
it's
of hard
reduced
drives.
to.
Most hard drives that you can't even plug in anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like this that old that like. Has anyone got that lead?
That's the editor's vault.
Nobody's used that lead. Oh, God, of course, yeah, because you didn't make that record until that lead came. It was a technical challenge. And also going back to the guys and saying, hey, guys, which version of this sounds like the one that you used? And they're like, I don't know.
I can't remember which.
And
mix
then we were
did.
just like, which mix? Because there's like 5 all in the same period. And it was just like, which one sounds best? That one. Okay, brilliant. Let's call it
What's your next pick to play?
Let's play Munich because, I mean, it got us out the blocks, really. That and Bullets, those 2 songs at the time, yeah.
Editors and Munich. Tom and Justin from the band are here with me this weekend. Tom, particularly for you, I guess, hearing that must bring back so many memories.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of Birmingham, especially, and playing in the Jug of Ale and the Flapper and Firkin and being part of that very vibrant scene at the time of kind of, unsigned bands. And because we'd been studying up the road in Stafford and that finished, and we made the decision to move to Birmingham and try and get a record deal. And we were there for a year or 2 before that happened, and it was an exciting time, jumping in my Polo to rehearsal after work every day because we had to work to pay our rent and then just rehearse. That's all we did, really. And then hearing Zayn play Bullets for the first time was something I'll never ever forget. And Munich in particular was, when that song came along, it was like something shifted slightly. I remember like when we'd sound check it, even at these unsigned nights, people would stop, and listen. And there's something about the chords that I play with the open notes combined with Chris's melody that and his guitar tone that just set us apart from people, really. And there was magic there. Yeah, just a moment in time.
Guys, thank you. Tom and Justin from Editors. More with the guys tomorrow morning. 6 Music Sunday morning. And if you were listening yesterday, then you'll know that Editors release a new best-of album, Black Gold, on Friday. And Tom and Justin from the band are with me to pick more of their favourites from the album. We played Munich and Sugar yesterday, guys. What shall I kick off with this morning?
I think No Harm. It's the most we've ever sounded like Enya.
Perfect for a Sunday morning.
Do you remember writing it?
Well, I remember the making of... So this is from In Dream, which was the record after Justin joined, so the second record that Justin Elliott made with us. And we took the decision to hide ourselves away in the west coast of Scotland and produce it ourselves, mainly Justin kind of taking over that role, and just explore synthesizers and keyboards and mood more than we'd ever done before. And it's an absolutely stunning setting, a big kind of room which is normally used for weddings, which we hired, with a big glass
panoramic kind of
over the ocean, over to the island of Jura. And these songs, and particularly this one, this was the moment where this record started to come into focus and we kind of realised what we were trying to do. That combination of drum machines and synthesizers and the scenery seemed to become this kind of thing, really.
And it sounds like it became quite a pivotal song for you.
I'd say it's my favourite Editors song, to be honest. Whenever you're making records, whatever band, however far along in your career, there's always a point in a record where things drop into place. You're like, that's what this record's going to sound like. Everything else will need to fall into this line in order to make that record. And this was the moment on that record.
And did it, for you, Justin, make you feel like a proper part of the band?
I felt like a part of the band when we were on the record previous, which was a very old school way of doing it. We went out to Nashville and it was 5 guys in a room with guitars. And it was a very immediate, this is a solidifying of a live band. This one was like, right, we've done that now. We feel like a band. We've done these big shows. Let's go and hide away and make a proper record.
I think it's probably more to our taste, isn't it? I think I realised that, like, stylistically, the 5 of us making music a bit more like this, it felt like we can do this together, Like, the record before was like, we just need to do the basics.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to belittle that album. There's lots of songs on that, like Sugar, which I love, but I think we're more at home with keyboards and synthesizers now.
What do you remember about hearing the finished version of this?
This was the first song we put out from In Dream, and this isn't really a radio single type song. I mean, this is so cool to play this here. It's very slow, it's very moody, and it was the first time we'd worked with a video maker called Rahi Rezvani, so we'd done loads of things with him since, and our relationship with him and the visual side of the band became a really important thing for us. So the video for this and this song coming out at the same time was a really big step, because like I say, we're an alternative band. Our songs for the most part don't just go on the radio all the time. It's about the live thing and
the album thing.
Yeah, and the album thing and the videos and the photos and the way we look and stuff. So yeah, it marked the beginning of this relationship with Rahi Rezvani.
Editors, No Harm. Six Music for Sunday morning, and this weekend on the show celebrating the release of Black Gold, the new best of by editors. Tom and Justin from the band are here, looking back over what's been for you, Tom, a near 20-year career doing the music.
Just about, yeah. I mean, when I met Russell and Ed and Chris back at university, it was pretty much 20 years ago, which is quite scary.
And has it turned out the way you wanted it to?
There's been some downs, but mainly ups. And what can I say? We're doing what we love to do. We've managed to keep doing it. I mean, even when we started, the bands that we admire and look to emulate were the bands that had longevity and had careers and took their audience on a journey and were brave and did things that surprised people, if that was Radiohead or R.E.M. or, those kind of career bands that when you start out to say you want longevity really isn't cool. It probably still isn't cool, but I'm immensely proud of ours,
Do you think putting out this best of now, guys, kind of is the end of part two for editors?
I think so, because, I see part one, 3 records with Chris in the band and then the next 3 records being part 2. So this does feel like the end of that chapter, yeah. So
moving into season 3.
Moving into season 3.
That's where it gets interesting.
What might the plan be for part 3 then, season 3?
Elaborate, Justin. I'm intrigued.
I mean, the depth of the material on this album kind of frees us up to pretty much go and, again, try and do what we want, which has kind of been the point of the band from day one, is to go and do what we want and then work it out when we've done that.
A lot of bands talk about how they do it for the live experience, how that's what's most important to them. But I get the feeling that there's probably a bit more of a balance for you guys of actually making the music as well as performing.
Love the studio.
We like being tinkering and kind of fiddling in the studio.
I think the older we get, I mean, just for me, it probably is for you, the more confident we are. We're confident that we can go and make any record we want ourselves, and then we can draft in what we need from experience.
Who we need, maybe.
Yeah, who we need. Which is, we're kind of fortunate to do. We're in that position, but I definitely think we're very much a studio band.
How about this being a best of that we're talking about? How about I ask you both a best of questions? So for you, Justin, best time in the studio?
Best time in the studio? Oh, man. Probably making In Dream, and I was like the designated driver, and the nearest pub to our setup at that point.
I thought you meant like the producer, designated driver of the session.
Well, yeah, both. Well. It works both ways. But I was also actually physically the designated driver. So
good metaphor.
I had this like old school Land Rover that we all used to jump in, and the nearest pub was 30 minutes down a single track road with no lights. Just remember, once a week we granted ourselves a night out in this little fishing port village 30 minutes away from the studio. I was just like, the memory's like completely stuck in my brain. It's like, what are we doing on the west coast of Scotland in a beat up old Land Rover, listening to Bee Gees on high volume?
There's the insight.
Good times.
Great times.
Yeah,
meant to be great times, basically.
Great. And for you, Tom, your best live experience?
The best live experience? Let's talk about one closer to home. And Glastonbury 2007 was very special. On the eve of that second album coming out, playing a slot where, it goes dark, and we'd had success on the first record, and I think Smokers Outside the Hospital Doors had been out, and I think it was in the top 10, and we were playing, and it was on telly, everybody's watching, and we had one of those moments, a moment which I'd witnessed other bands do plenty of times, because I grew up near there. I'd been to Glastonbury, 97, 98, 99 as a punter who just, passes GCSEs or whatever, that kind of rite of passage. So I remember seeing Radiohead in 97 going, that's what I want to do, standing there in that field covered in mud. So to have our own moment then, and we did that show, and the album went in at number 1, and it was a good time.
Does it get much better than that?
No, I think that's right up there. It wasn't long after that we were at the Brits, which is, I guess, people might think that's better, but it's not the same thing. It's not as, it's not real. We've toured a lot throughout, it's a big part of why we're still sat here. People have always loved us on stage, perhaps more than they do on CD or whatever. So we've had a lot of good nights in front of audiences, but when you really feel like you've managed to be that you're in control of that energy, that collective energy of people, that massive humanity that's in front of you, when you feel like you're actually not just there soundtracking, but actually controlling the energy, you feel like Superman.
Do you still love it as much now as you ever did?
Yeah, when it goes well, yeah. And I think over the years, how comfortable I am as being a performer and understanding that it is performance. You know, it took me a while to like, not until after our third, fourth record maybe, to kind of really relax a bit on stage and enjoy it more.
Do you think you have two personas then?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's not me on stage.
You're happy to live with that?
Yeah, I'm this thing. The thing on stage is, but I've created it. You know, like it's, you know, it's happened over years, whittled, you know, down from all the songs that we've written and these shows that we've done. And yeah, you become the thing that you create. And it's an exaggerated version of yourself, perhaps, but it's not me when I'm walking down getting a sandwich from Pret.
Of course. I'm curious to know, you're talking about Glastonbury 2007 and the album going to #1. What goes through the mind of a singer about to take to that stage?
I remember the flags. I remember, don't know really, they're just nerves, butterflies. It's pretty simple, really. Like, it's new. Going on later at night when it starts to get dark, there's a different energy.
I think you make music that's best listened to in the dark.
I reckon so. That like twilight as the sun's going down kind of thing into the dark kind of works for us really well.
Congratulations on still doing it.
Cheers. Yeah.
And having been doing it long enough to put out a best of. One last track from it. Justin, Tom, what's it going to be?
I think we do Hallelujah solo, so do you want to...
Yeah, newer one, and this was like a return of the guitar on an editor's record and in an almighty way, because there's a massive riff that goes most of the way through the song. Absolutely great track to play live.
Hallelujah from Black Gold. It's one of 16 tracks on the new Editor's Best Of, which comes out next Friday. And my enormous thanks, Tom and Justin, to the both of you for being here and sharing your stories this weekend. Thank you so much, guys.
Cheers,
Thanks for having us.